Hello there, welcome to today's episode of Luke's Walks. We're going to be exploring Chinatown in depth and its connection with China. First stop will be Lhong 1919. Let's go. Today's video, I originally had some concepts and ideas. I just wanted to do a video about Chinatown, but then I started reading about the history of Chinatown and my imagination just grew and grew as the information increased. So what I've decided to do is a couple of videos about Chinatown and tracing it back to when King Taksin was the ruler, and he became the ruler just after the fall of Ayutthaya. So that's where I'm going to pick up the story. So the original idea was to do one video about Chinatown, but it's such an interesting story, I'm going to do a few videos. So I hope you enjoy the journey with me. Seems like a great place to start a video about China, celebrating Chinese influence in Thailand, and celebrating and exploring Chinatown and the history of Chinese in Thailand. This is Lhong 1999. It's a really, really wonderful place. It's unbelievably photogenic. So it's just near Icon Siam. So you can get here via the Chao Phraya River, or as I did, you can come here by road. Either way, it's worth a trip. It's really cool. I'll show you around. In 1919 was originally called Hua Chuan Long, which means steamship terminal. So as the name explains, this was the terminal for the steamships. Originally built in 1850, it was designed as the terminal for the steamship, and also it had shops, warehouses, and the Mazu Shrine also. Around 1900, it was converted into residence, so people could live here and rent the homes here. However, just after World War I, about 1919, recession hit, and the original owners sold this complex here to the Wang Li family. And so the Wang Li family have been the owners since. So thus the name 1919, well, that's when the Wang Li family purchased this place. Mazu is a Chinese sea goddess, and this sea goddess looks over the safety of the ships and the seafarers as well. Hence the significance of the Mazu Shrine being here at the port area. Just to help you get your bearings, this is the mighty Chao Phraya River, and this is such an important part of the Bangkok story, and in particular Chinese influence and the Chinese arrival and Chinese trade here with the people of Bangkok and Siam in the early days, but also the development of Chinatown. So I'm at Lhong 1919, and just over the other side we've got Ratchawong Pier, which is an important pier. That's where the Chinese immigrants came, and this is where a lot of trade happened. And also over the other side of the river is Chinatown, and just downstream a little bit we've got the Bun Ruck area, which I'm doing a series of videos about at the moment. And even further down, we can't quite see it, but it's it is the King Taksin Bridge. So we're going to visit that place as well, because this video today is about King Taksin in particular, and how the Chinese first started doing trade with the people of Siam and how Chinese immigration first started during the reign of King Taksin. On another note, this river is such a fascinating place. If you ever get a chance, there's so many cool restaurants and cafes and even the odd pub that you can sit and enjoy a nice meal or a beer or a glass of wine or a gin and tonic and watch the sun go down, or just watch the busy river. It's so interesting, this river. As you can see, this boat here, this is quite a common sight. These massive barges getting pulled up upstream by the tugboats carrying loads of sand. I think it's sand. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section. But they're absolutely massive, and if you see them at night, what I find fascinating as well is they have no lights on. They're just black barges that are absolutely massive, not lit up at all. And then you watch the how they navigate, how the other seacraft navigate around them. It's just chaos. It's so interesting. And all the cities in the world, this is one of the most interesting river systems, river places. This is one of the most interesting places to sit and watch watch what goes on. Another way to enjoy the Chao Phraya River, which is what we're going to do in a future video, is actually on a boat. So we're going to jump on a boat and explore the Chao Phraya River in a future video. Here comes the barge. Tugboats dragging it upstream. So you see the big barges here now. They're pretty high out of the water. When they go upstream, they collect the sand, the gravel, and then they come back downstream, and the water is way up to where those tires are. So they're absolutely full to the brim. They're overloaded there. Renovations occurred or started in 2016, and I believe this place opened in 2021, and it is what it is today. It's pretty quiet here. So I'm here on a weekend and there's not that many other people around, so mind you, I am here in the middle of the day, which is a bit stupid of me. It's pretty bloody hot. I think if you're sensible, come here in the afternoon, where it's a bit cooler. But there's some shops, cool shops here, and a cafe, an art gallery, and also a restaurant as well. So it's a very, very nice place. I'd recommend it. Now it's designed, the design here is the classic U shape that you'll see in a lot of Chinese buildings, and that has Feng Shui connection. So it's the balancing between the movement of spirits and connection with heaven and earth as well. If you want to learn more about Feng Shui, I'm sure there's other videos you could possibly watch. I'm not an expert. This is Qigong, and it is the goddess of heaven and earth. This is the Mazu shrine, and this is the goddess of the sea. So for today's exploration, we're going to start at King Taksin Bridge, then we're going to head over to King Taksin Shrine, and after that we're going to head to Thonburi Palace, which is where King Taksin set up his palace. And I'm not sure if we can access it. I did read something about it's only open certain times of the year. So what we'll do as a backup plan, we'll stop at Wat Arun, which is right next to Thonburi Palace. So today's video is all about explaining King Taksin and his connection with China and the Chinese immigration. So just to provide a bit more context, so it was King Taksin who was the ruler just after the Burmese conquered Ayutthaya, and King Taksin built his kingdom in Thonburi. And it was about this time when the Chinese immigration and a relationship with China developed. But then King Rama 1, 2 and 3, there was an increase in trade and in Chinese immigration. And then it was King Rama 4 and King Rama 5 is around the colonial period. So I'm going to explore that as well. which will take us right up to current day Chinatown. So that's the series of the next couple of videos that I'm going to be doing as I explore Chinatown. Okay, now it's time to head to Wat Arun. Let's go. Taksin. I'm at Sampangtawong, our quick Thai lesson. Saphan is the Thai word for bridge, and Taksin is the name of the king, King Taksin. So this is King Taksin's bridge. Taksin BTS station, and it's quite a remarkable feat of engineering because it's built over a Lhong. So early in the Chakri dynasty, so I'm talking around the King Rama 1, 2, 3, 4, around those times, there was the tendency to dig and build a lot of canals, and including King Taksin. However, when it got to King Rama 5 and after that, the common practice was to build over the Lhongs and the canals and cover them over and make roads. So there's actually a lot of roads around Bangkok nowadays in the 2020s that were actually built over Lhongs. So this here is a remarkable feat. We're right next to the Chao Phraya River, and it's a BTS station over the Lhong, but they haven't blocked in, they haven't filled in the Lhong. The Lhong still exists in some form. So right beside Sampangtawong BTS station is Taksin's Park, and unfortunately it is closed. So I've made my way here to talk about King Taksin and talk about his park and talk about the King Taksin Memorial Bridge, but I ain't going to be able to get into that park to do such, to comment on it. Now, just to get your bearings, you'll see a very famous landmark, the Ghost Tower. This was a project that was close to being completed. It's the State Tower, and it was close to being completed, and then the financial crisis occurred, the Asian financial crisis. So it never actually got completed. There are a few adventurous people who've actually been up there, but I'm not that much of a risk taker. But it's actually quite a striking building. You can see this. This is one of those landmarks that no matter where you are in Bangkok, you think, where the hell am I? You can always look up and try and find this tower, the Ghost Tower, or look for Mahanakhon Tower as well. That'll help you get your bearings. Needless to say, being this close to the river, they have a lot of flooding problems, and the Lhong just sneaks up here. So you'll see a lot of sandbags around this area. So King Taksin's story starts where we need to talk about Ayutthaya. So Ayutthaya was the capital of Siam, and Burmese attacked Ayutthaya, and they won that battle and absolutely destroyed Ayutthaya. So what happened? They assassinated the king, and the people then had to flee, and the people, the Thai people, were then scattered back all over the country. Now Taksin, he went down south, so he's from the Lhong area. That's where he was. Now during this time, after the Burmese, after the fall of the Ayutthaya kingdom, the Burmese didn't stick around for long. They left only a small army, and then they went north again. Now it was during this time that the Thai people, some new groups were forming, and they were led by some rebels and warlords. And Taksin got himself an army together down in Lhong. And once he had his army together, they set sail for the Thonburi area, which is not far from where we are right now. In 1767 is when the Burmese attacked Ayutthaya and took charge of Ayutthaya. Now the Burmese weren't content on sticking around. So the Burmese, after they conquered Ayutthaya, they set sail for the north because there were some more pressing needs and more battles to be fought up in the north. And so they only left a handful of soldiers and troops there in Ayutthaya. So the Burmese army, the reason they needed to go back north was they were facing some threats from the Chinese. They needed to fight some battles there. So they only left a small troop in Ayutthaya. So whilst the Burmese were focused on battles in the north with the Chinese, this is when King Taksin and his troops of 5,000 planned their attack. So first of all, the team of 5,000, they first of all went to Thonburi, which was ruled at the time by some warlord, and they seized control of Thonburi. After they seized control of Thonburi, they set sail for Ayutthaya, and it was in Ayutthaya where they took on the Burmese, but it was a weakened Burmese. There wasn't that many troops there, so victory was quite swift. So it was actually only 7 months from when the Burmese took control of Ayutthaya to when King Taksin reclaimed it for Siam. Now once Taksin and his troops took command of Ayutthaya, they then were faced with a decision. Do they rebuild Ayutthaya, or do they create a new palace somewhere else? And they chose the latter, and a couple of reasons contributed to this decision. Was first and foremost that Ayutthaya was destroyed so much that it was going to take considerable amount of time and effort and money to actually rebuild Ayutthaya. And they also presumed that the Burmese had a really good understanding of Ayutthaya. So if the Burmese were to attack again, they know all about the vulnerabilities of the kingdom in Ayutthaya. So this contributed to some of the, these were some of the reasons why Taksin decided not to rebuild Ayutthaya, and instead he set sail back down the Chao Phraya River to Thonburi, and it was Thonburi where he decided to build his palace, build the royal palace, and to make Thonburi the capital of Siam. Now, there was another reason why he wanted to be in Thonburi as well, was because of those different warlords and different groups. There were 6 main factions within Thailand at this time, and he was concerned that anyone upstream would need weapons. So for him to build the capital and build his base in Thonburi, this would be a strategic position. So if there's anyone who was sailing upstream to deliver weapons, then he could cut them off. So he could cut the supply off. So this contributed. This was another reason why he chose Thonburi as his capital. One famous place or a well-known place is the Pepsi Pier, and it's just at the base of that building there. Now the Pepsi Pier, they have markets there regularly, and also it looks like they're setting up with a big rock show. It's a massive stack of speakers there. So this is the Pepsi Pier, which is right next to the Saphan Taksin, or Taksin Bridge. So a couple of landmarks, you'll see this is the Shangri-La Hotel. Now just down on the riverbank there's a famous bar called Jack's Bar. It's a great little spot to go for a beer or a bit of Thai food and to watch the action in the Chao Phraya River. On the other side is the massive Icon Siam. So one of the newest additions with shopping, one of the newest shopping malls added to Bangkok. So that opened, I think it was 1919 around. That opened just a few years back, the Icon Siam, and that's a massive place. So if you're into boutique shopping or shopping in general, Icon Siam is the place for you to go and visit. But she's a mighty river here. It's full of so many stories, and we're going to explore a few today and in future videos. One small thing I'm really sad about is that Bangkok doesn't have a really good walkway along the riverbank. Yeah, if I was the Lord Mayor, that's what I'd be trying to do. December 28th, 1767, Taksin was crowned the King of Siam at Thonburi Palace in Thonburi, which is the new capital of Siam. He was aged 34 at the time. Taksin was a worthy successor to the throne because he ensured appropriate treatment to the remnants of the ex-royal family. He arranged a grand cremation of the King Ekatat, and tackled the problem of establishing the capital of Thonburi. However, he never really had time to build it into a great city, as he was occupied with the suppression of internal and external enemies, as well as territorial expansion throughout his reign. Because after the fall of Ayutthaya, there was disarray, followed by the rise of several warlords in Siam who were all keen on taking charge of Siam. In addition to the internal threat, there was a Burmese invasion. And during Taksin's reign, Taksin waged a total of 19 campaigns against the Burmese. Okay, where I'm standing here is the strong smell of urine. So I'm gonna jump on I'm gonna go over the Taksin Bridge now, and I'm gonna head to King Taksin Monument, which is over in Thonburi. So jump on my scooter and get a bit of fresh air, change of scenery. Character-filled place is the Wongwian train station, and it looks like the 12 o'clock marcha is about to take off. So if you're looking for a character-filled place to take a few photographs or wander around, then Wongwian train station I would recommend. Such an interesting neighborhood here. King Taksin Shrine, and it's bloody hot. There's not one bit of shade in this whole park, so I'm melting. Not only that, it's very difficult to cross the road here. It's a pretty busy roundabout. But despite the challenges, I'm happy to be here. Let me tell you about this monument. So this is King Taksin the Great, also known as the King of Thonburi. Although warfare occupied most of Taksin's reign, during his reign, he paid a great deal of attention to politics, administration, and the welfare of the country. Taksin promoted trade and fostered foreign relations. In particular, relations with China, but also with Britain and the Netherlands. At the time, the British had colonized neighboring country Myanmar, and the Netherlands were to the south. They'd occupied Indonesia. So during Taksin's reign, he was quite busy building infrastructure. He dug canals, built roads, and also renovated a great number of temples in the area. He also made some attempts to revive literature and the arts, and also had and started to acquire a great collection of literature, including religious literature, and he tried to revive religious studies at the time and education in general. When Taksin established Thonburi as his capital, people were living in abject poverty. The king was well aware of the plight of his subjects and tried to do his best to improve their life. Well, finally, the sun's gone behind some clouds. Finally, oh, so darn hot out here. During King Taksin's reign, he was most concerned with the abject poverty the people were living in. So he put a lot of attention to try and solve this problem. In fact, one of the things he did was import a lot of rice. So he, out of his own pocket, paid for rice and distributed rice amongst the people, which was greatly appreciated at the time. And because of his generosity and kindness in distributing the food to the people living in poverty, the country gradually started to recover. And what they were coming out of was that period of war from the Burmese attacks from Ayutthaya. One of Taksin's contemporaries, Francois-Henri Turpin, in 1771, wrote this about the famine conditions. Taksin showed his generous spirit. The needy were destitute no longer. The public treasury was opened for the relief. During Taksin's reign, he sent 3 envoys to China to try and build relations there. However, to no avail, because in China, the dynasty at the time, the emperor at the time, refused to deal with Taksin because he had no legitimate claim to the throne. So they refused to do any kind of business with him or build any relations with Taksin. Interestingly, however, Taksin was actually, his father was Chinese or part Chinese, and his mother was Siamese. So it's strange that the Chinese would not want to do business with him initially, didn't want to build any relations with him. However, this changed because of the need of the time, and there was a need to rebuild this area and then the country. Taksin actually thought about getting some help from some Chinese immigrants to come to Thailand, to come to Siam, and to try and rebuild the country. So during this period, Chinese immigration increased rapidly. So this is where the story kind of my initial investigation into the Chinatown and the Chinese influence in Bangkok led me to this point, where the Chinese immigrants came to Siam, to the capital here in Thonburi, to help rebuild and to help build the city here under King Taksin's rule. So under the strain of the times, King Taksin started to grow a little bit crazy. Reports have mentioned insanity, mental issues. One of the main concerns was that he claimed that he was divine, and that he indeed was the future Buddha. So more and more he increased his practice of meditation, and then he even demanded that the Buddhist monks at the time, he wanted the Buddhist monks at the time to acknowledge his divinity. More about Taksin's mental problems and his untimely, well maybe timely death. I'm going to tell you that story at the next location, which I'm going to go to the Palace of Thonburi, and also there's which is right next to Wat Arun. So that's my next stop. I need to stop filming because my camera has overheated. It's so hot here. So off to the next site. So pro tip, if you're looking to cross here, this roundabout's absolute chaos, but I found a pattern. These guys get a red light at some stage, so you can cross there. And then these guys get a red light at some stage. So if you want to actually go and have a closer look at the Taksin Shrine, that's my pro tip of how to cross the road here. What is your name? Yindiที่ได้รู้จัก
ครับผมขอบคุณมากครับ
Hello.
นี่ชื่อว่า my name is หมา
My name is Gayu. My name is Min Min.
Nice to meet you. My name is Luke. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Hello. สวัสดีครับ I hope I see myself on Google Maps. That would be a dream come true. Today might be my lucky day. I'm actually a big contributor to Google Maps, so it actually would make my day. This is Wat Arun, arguably Thailand's most recognizable landmarks. Let me tell you all about Wat Arun. I'm not sure if you can notice on the video, but a common architectural feature of temples is that the walls are actually slanted inward a little bit from the base to the top, and it's to give that feeling of the temple is reaching to the heavens. It's really, really beautiful here. Amazing place. Looking at this temple from a distance, I always thought that it was like a really quite bland color, grey, but actually it's really colorful. Like coming up here and being this close to it, I've never realized how many beautiful colors were involved in this Wat. It's faded over the time, but it's still much more colourful than I imagined from the other side of the river. Wat Arun has been around since the time of the Ayutthaya Kingdom. And back when it was originally built, it was called Wat Bangkok. The name, however, was changed by Taksin. Taksin changed its name to Wat Chang, and that was in 1767. Following the fall of Ayutthaya, it was believed that King Taksin, who wasn't king at the time, sailed past this temple and vowed, he sailed past it at dawn, and he saw how beautiful it was that he vowed to restore it. At one point in time, the Emerald Buddha was actually enshrined here, and that's a whole other story for another video. The importance of the Emerald Buddha in Thai history. So during King Taksin's time, this was indeed on the grounds of the royal palace. It was when King Rama I re-established the capital over the other side of the river at Ratanakosin, that this was no longer the royal palace grounds, and this became open to the public once again. This is indeed my first time visiting Wat Arun. I'm really impressed. If you haven't been so far, I'd thoroughly recommend it. If you're a visitor to Bangkok, I'd recommend paying a visit to Wat Arun. It's really, really marvellous place. Wat Arun means Temple of Dawn. And then temple derives its name from the Hindu god of Aruna. So the significance of the name, the temple personifies the radiations of the rising sun. Now, one of the best ways to enjoy and appreciate Wat Arun is in fact sunrise or the sunset. So the sunset, you can be on the other side of the Chao Phraya River and watch the sun set behind the magnificent Wat Arun. It's really a sight to behold. It's a magnificent way to spend an afternoon. In fact, I might do that today. Actually, another way to enjoy, so watching the sunset behind Wat Arun is a magical experience, but actually Wat Arun also at night is a marvellous experience, a sight to behold as well. They light it up in this beautiful lights, and different times of the year as well, they'll light it up in different colours as well. So beautiful sight, really is. So I'm standing in Wat Arun at the moment, and just over there is Thonburi Palace. So that was the residence, and that's where King Taksin built his royal palace. Now the reason he chose this site is because when he was crowned king, he didn't want to return to Ayutthaya. The main reason he didn't want to return there, well, one of the reasons was, first and foremost, that it was ruined. The Burmese army just destroyed the place. For him to go back to Ayutthaya would take a lot of manpower to try and repair and restore the destroyed royal palace and city there. But he also believed the Burmese army actually had a good understanding of Ayutthaya. So if he was to return there, he'd be quite vulnerable to more attacks. So that was one of the reasons he decided to rebuild the royal palace here and make Thonburi the capital of Siam. Now another reason he chose Ayutthaya as well was when, after the Burmese war, after the Burmese conquered Ayutthaya, Thailand and the kingdom was in disarray. In fact, it kind of split into 6 main groups, and the 6 groups were ruled by warlords who survived the Burmese attack, and Taksin was one of these rulers. So he decided that he was to build his capital here in Thonburi because Chao Phraya River was one of the main supply lines. So if there was any other groups that wanted to start upstream, they would have to pass Thonburi to get weapons. So he could cut the supply off here at Thonburi. So nobody in the north would be able to grow more powerful and increase their stock of weapons. The Royal Navy has actually moved in, and they operate the grounds and all the buildings that are in Thonburi Palace. Thonburi Palace is now closed, so I can't actually get in there, but Thonburi Palace, that was where King Taksin built his kingdom, and there's also a shrine in there, King Taksin Shrine, which we can't get to, but I can look over the fence. If you're visiting here, be careful with these steps. They're pretty steep. Got the old wobbly knees going. My old knees can't handle these steps. Back to the story of Taksin. He began, we pick up the story when he started to show signs of insanity. So basically what started to happen was he believed that he had entered one of the earliest stages of enlightenment. So there's 4 stages of enlightenment, and it's called a stream of enlightenment. So he claimed that he had entered what was it called? Sotapanna. He claimed that he had entered the Sotapanna stage of enlightenment, which is the first of 4 stages. Now, because of this, he demanded that the other monks bowed to him, and those who didn't were flogged or sent to labour camps. It's important to note that some historians actually believe that the claim that Taksin became insane was just a story. It was a story brewed up so as to overthrow the king and provide a reason for him to be executed. However, this is a theory. There are lots of other accounts to say that he had indeed he had shown a lot of signs of insanity. Particularly, the phrase religious fanatic is often used to describe Taksin just before he was overthrown. So much so that he actually even had his own family, his sons, the heir apparent, thrown into prison for not worshipping him. There was also some Vietnamese who were thrown into prison. 2 important generals were imprisoned. This actually struck up a friendship, a camaraderie with these Vietnamese generals, and the 2 Intratropic and the Vietnamese generals, because they were in prison together, they built up a camaraderie and swore to help each other if there was ever a need, and that need was just around the corner. In 1788, Cambodia decided to switch their allegiance from Thailand to Vietnam. As a result, Taksin decided to annex Cambodia. So he sent an army of 20,000 to Cambodia, and this army of 20,000 was led by Chao Phraya Chakri, who was later to become the King Rama I. And once they conquered Cambodia, that doesn't sound right. Intrapitak, the son, was crowned ruler of Cambodia. So while this was occurring in Cambodia, a rebel group staged a coup d'etat and overthrew King Taksin. The king surrendered without resistance, and this all occurred in 1872. So when King Taksin was overthrown, he made a request to the rebels that he could enter the monkhood at Wat Arun, which is where we are right now. His request was rejected. So then the scenes in the city of Thonburi took a turn for the worst. Chaos broke out. There was lots of looting, lots of riots. Chaos was brewing. Because the city was in chaos and there was looting and killing, Chao Phraya Chakri grew concerned that this would be an opportunity for the Vietnamese to attack. So he promptly returned from Cambodia and quickly returned back here to Bangkok, to Thonburi. When Chao Phraya Chakri returned, he quickly overthrew the rebel group that seized control and restored peace quite promptly. He then demanded the execution of King Taksin. The reason Chao Phraya Chakri decided to put Taksin to death because he thought that the king acted improperly and unjustly, and he caused great pain to the people. It's been reported that Taksin actually asked for an audience with Chao Phraya Chakri, but the audience the request was rejected. Taksin was beheaded on Wednesday, April the 10th, 1782. General Chao Phraya Chakri seized control of the capital and declared himself king. He was to become Rama #1, King Rama I, and his dynasty is called the Chakri dynasty, which is still in place today. So Taksin's son, heir apparent, Intrapitak, was in Cambodia, so he promptly returned. When he returned, his plan was to seize control of the throne. However, not many people supported him, and when he returned, he was captured by Surasi and was sentenced to death in Thonburi. Alternative accounts states that Taksin was ordered to be executed in the traditional Siamese way by General Chao Phraya Chakri, and that method of the time was said to be that King Taksin was placed in a velvet sack and beaten to death with sandalwood sticks. Another account was that Taksin was actually snuck out of the capital and went to a mountain retreat. The theory is that he lived there in secret until 1825, and that there was a substitute actually placed in the velvet sack. However, the Vietnamese account of the event was that he indeed was executed in a public place in the view of the public. Another theory was that because King Taksin had Chinese heritage, this put his legitimacy, the monarchy, in jeopardy, and that is actually the reason why Chao Phraya Chakri had Taksin assassinated, had him killed, so he could then become the rightful and legitimate king. Moreover, Taksin, the style of leadership that Taksin employed was a decentralized kind of leadership, and this was not fancied by Chao Phraya Chakri at the time. He liked the old style leadership. Another theory was also that the Chinese influence was growing too strong here, and this is another reason why Taksin had to be overthrown. However, interestingly enough, Chao Phraya Chakri, it's believed that he also has some Chinese heritage as well, which throws that claim up in the air. And one last theory as to why Taksin was executed was, one theory is that he owed millions of baht to the Chinese, and it was actually the Chinese emperor who demanded his death to settle the debts. Here comes one of those barges, or several barges pulled by the tugboat, which is now full of sand and gravel. And you can see the sides, how deep and how heavy the boat actually is, and where the water line is compared to the video footage I took earlier of the barges. Wat Arun, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a fantastic place to visit. If you get the chance, be sure to check out Wat Arun. It will be well worth your trouble. So my plan was to go from Lhong 1999 to King Taksin Bridge, but after going over the bridge a couple of times, I couldn't find a good spot where I could actually just sit and see the bridge, or get a good camera angle, or it was just a busy bridge. So I'm just going to talk about the bridge with this beautiful orchid in the background. Hope you don't mind. So as I started the story, I thought, I'll go to King Taksin Bridge. I'll have the bridge in the background. I'll give a little introduction about King Taksin and the Ayutthaya period, and see that marvelous bridge and talk about the history of the bridge, but couldn't get there, sorry. So King Taksin Bridge was actually the 6th bridge built in Bangkok that crosses the Chao Phraya River, and it was opened on the 6th of May 1982 by King Rama IX. The bridge was named in honor of King Taksin, the King of Thonburi. So the story of Chinatown can actually be traced back to King Taksin. Now King Taksin, he was the king that emerged after the fall of Ayutthaya. So with Ayutthaya, the Burmese conquered Ayutthaya and left it in ruins, and there the kingdom of Siam was in tatters. Now, for some strange reason, Burmese didn't, once they conquered Ayutthaya, they didn't want to stay there. They had other battles to fight, particularly up in the north. So they left a kind of a weakened army to guard Ayutthaya. Now, Taksin at the time noticed this. Now he gathered a team together, and they went and reconquered Ayutthaya. Before he conquered Ayutthaya, however, Taksin and his 5,000 troops first of all conquered Thonburi. So at the time there was different warlords who were controlling different areas. So his first victory was conquering Thonburi. Now after that victory, he decided it was time to reclaim Ayutthaya. So his troops travelled up the Chao Phraya River and retook control of Ayutthaya. This only happened actually 7 months after the Burmese conquered Ayutthaya. So it was a very short period. But the Burmese at the time, they had other wars to fight. They had other problems to take care of. So that's why they left a small army in Ayutthaya. On December 28th, 1767, Taksin was crowned the King of Siam in Thonburi. And the new capital of Siam was built. Taksin at the time was 34 years old, and he was a worthy successor The way he gathered the troops together, the way he conquered Ayutthaya was well respected. And when he first became the ruler, he was a real leader. He had a lot of followers. He was smart, and he was able to conquer internal opposition and external as well. So he had battles to fight on all angles, and actually did a really good job of it. During Taksin's reign, he actually conducted 9 campaigns against the Burmese. So it was a pretty treacherous time of history, which is where Taksin rose to become a fantastic leader. Not only that, he was also concerned about re-establishing and helping the people. The people were in disarray. There was a lot of poverty. So he was quite a clever man who wanted to re-establish this capital and help the people. To conclude this video, I'm going to go and find myself a nice spot on the other side of the Chao Phraya River to watch the sunset. I grab myself a beer as well. I think I've earned it today. So I'm looking for places to watch the sunset. I can see River Arun. It's got a good rooftop bar there. I can see Sala Ratanakosin. I can see Arun Riverside. And I also see like a pier area that's kind of being built. So that's my next stop. I've crossed the river. I've just left Wat Arun, and I've crossed the river because I want to watch the sunset. Now the times of the ferries were a little bit unpredictable, so after waiting about 45 minutes for a ferry that never showed up, I got a taxi, motorcycle taxi. I left my bike over there, got a motorcycle taxi. But anyway, forget that. I'm here now. So I've just got to find a nice strategic position to watch the sunset over Wat Arun. And I did cross the Green Bridge, the Memorial Bridge, so I'm going to go visit there one other time because that's a really cool spot. In the middle of the bridge, there's a garden area, and a lot of people there I could see were watching the sunset from there, so I might try that as well in the future. So there's a couple of good spots there. I might have to come back here with my wife or a couple of friends and enjoy dinner and watch the sunset. However, I've got a new plan tonight, this afternoon, and my plan is I've just grabbed a couple of cans of Singer from the 7-Eleven, and I'm going to set up the camera, watch the sunset, film it, have a little romantic time of my own, and just to reflect on the day and think about King Taksin. Next video is going to be about Rama 1, Rama 2, Rama 3, that period, the colonial period, and the Chinese influence and increase of Chinese immigration during that period. This is in a series of videos I'm doing about the Sampangtawong area and the Bangk area, and this little bunch of videos is focusing on Chinatown and the Chinese influence and where it all started in Thai history. And it all started with King Taksin. Time to watch the sunset.